Hey, Chica! Welcome to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast, the show where women share their personal power tools, the techniques, strategies, and ways of being which have enabled their business and life success. I'm your host, Lovelda Vincenzi, a female speaker mentor, speaker, and event host on a mission to unleash authentic, powerful female voices onto the world. In today's episode, we'll be uncovering the power tools of Michelle Mazur. Michelle wants to know what makes you angry. She works with brilliant business owners who are shaking things up, but having a little trouble talking about it. She combines the tools of successful social movements with the qualitative research skills that she earned in her communications PhD. By getting clear on both what you stand for and what you're rebelling against, she helps her clients craft powerful, captivating messages that has audiences flocking to hire them and desperate to spread their word. The author of 3 books, including the newly published and released 3-Word Rebellion, and the host of the Rebel Rising podcast, Michelle has been featured in Fast Company, Entrepreneur, and Inc. She founded Communication Rebellion in part because she thinks there is nothing more heartbreaking than watching someone who could change the world fail just because it took them 30 rambling minutes to explain what they do. She knows that having a clear and captivating message is the key to reaching people that you could help most in a way that is powerful and feels effortless. In this episode, we explore how we all have that inner rebel and how to unleash her to catapult our businesses to success. Remember, all the links shared in this show can be found in the show notes. The only way to make sure that you get your regular fix of this show is to hit the subscribe button right now to make sure that you get updates as soon as a new show is added. Now, I think that's quite enough from me for now, so let's get on with the show. Hey, chicas, welcome back to another episode of the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast. If you have not already just subscribed, that's the word I'm looking for, you want to get on with that, like you really do. I say this at the top of every show. Why? Because the next episode is going to be just as juicy as this episode, and I don't want to hear you complain because you missed it. Nobody wants that FOMO, okay? All right, my rant is out of the way. Today's show, we're going to be talking rebels. This one is totally for y'all who feel like you don't fit in or who are running a business and you have always wanted to do it different and you're looking out there and seeing what everybody else is doing and it's driving you bleeding nuts because you just can't figure out how to put your message out there. Well, my queen today, that's exactly what she does for businesses. Seriously, she literally just is all about the rebellion. Like, what is it that you're doing? How do you do it? We gonna own that. We're gonna take it to the world and we're gonna make you some money with it. So please welcome to the show today, Michelle Mazur.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Girl, not as excited as me. I can tell you. I get buzzed about these conversations because I'm like, well, what are we going to discover today?
Oh, yes. I'm excited to see what you get out of me. The mystery.
People be listening like, Lovelda, you were crazy. You're right. I'm crazy. I am totally crazy. I'm locked up in a house right now and I need a little outlet. Okay. Just give me a little outlet. So Michelle, rebels, marketing, rebellion, and why? Like, that's all I want to say. How did you put those two things together? Because normally when we think about marketing, there are strategies and structures and ways that things are done. You know, you want to look at the numbers, you want to look at what's converting, you want to get to your messaging. And the way that you tend to start is to look at who is your ideal client, and it's very outward. But what you're talking about is taking a completely different perspective on how to market a business.
Yes, and the reason for that is like when I first started my business, and interestingly, when I first started my business, I was working with speakers. So my background is in communication and messaging, and I was a speaker, and I was brought up on speech and debate teams. And when I started my business and I was looking around at the online industry, I was seeing a lot of like the shoulds and like, oh, well, if you're going to market your business, you should be doing it this way. Like, you should be using scarcity, and you should be having this rags to riches story, and you should use a 3-part video series, and you should, and none of that ever fit well with me. Like, it just didn't sit. Like, I was like, but that feels manipulative. And I know message processing and persuasion theory. Like, I know what you're doing. Like, I know that you're manipulating people by putting in all of these like powerful persuasive triggers so that they stop thinking and making critical decisions that are in their best interest, so that they give you money, whether or not that product is needed, whether it's the right time for them in their business. And I saw that and I was just like, ugh, I don't want to do that. But that was what was being taught in the industry. And I felt like, oh my God, well, I guess that's what I should be doing. That's how things are done. And what I found so interesting is that, you know, here we are, we're these business owners, we're these entrepreneurs, and we're like, yeah, I want to escape corporate America, or, you know, or wherever you are in the world,
corporate
right?
Belgium.
Yeah, corporate UK, right? I want to escape the corporate structure and go work for myself and be my own boss and do my own thing. And all we're really doing is like trading one boss for another boss in the form of some guru we're following. And I was just like, no.
Wow,
No.
I love how you said that, like trading one boss for another boss in the form of a guru. Because I will be honest with you, like until you said that, I've never had that perspective on the guru in the personal development space, at least, or in the entrepreneurial space. It's about, you know, the way it's always been positioned is look for an expert and follow that expert. And if something is working, then you model what works. So when you're now coming with a completely different perspective and saying, but even though it works, I don't like how that feels. Like, it feels sleazy, it feels wrong, but it works. So how do you balance that? Because the way that I've heard it described before is, listen, you know, persuasiveness, it's, you know, it's a tool. And if what you've got to sell is something that's really valuable for people, then you should be out there using these techniques such that you can have the greatest impact in the world. Now, how does that sit with you? You're still like, girl, no.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, that is one way to persuade, and that works. But there are other ways to persuade that are not being taught that work. They just are different. They take a little bit more work up front to work just as well, and they feel a whole heck of a lot better. And really, it's about figuring out what works for you, creating the type of business that you want to create, piecing together things from different types of business owners and experts, right? Being like, oh, I like how that person's doing that one thing, but I don't like that, but I do like this. How can I make these work together? And if you're truly an entrepreneur, if you're truly a business owner, you're supposed to be creating your own path and figuring it out, not like some one size fits all formula, right? So it's about like looking at like, oh, that works and it feels good and it feels aligned, and in my gut, that's what I want to do. And ooh, that doesn't feel good, and every time I do it, my energy feels bad and I don't get great results when I do it that way. Because that's what I found out. Like when I did things a certain way, I got crap results, even though everybody's like, well, that's what works. It doesn't work for me. And then those experts will say, oh, but you're not doing it exactly the way I told you. It's like, no, I am, but my energy's off, so it doesn't work.
It's like, it's almost that thing where you're doing exactly what they say, but everything about your body is like, no, don't make me do it. I don't want to.
Yeah. And your body knows, right? Like we know when we're doing something that is out of alignment, out of integrity with who we are and how we want to show up in the world. And so that's part of like what I ended up rebelling against in business. It's like you can be successful and create a business that's on your own terms, and you can still make money and do it in a way that feels good. And you can learn from experts, but you don't have to do everything that they do. And you have to like carefully vet your experts because, hey, if the only way they've ever made money is by doing one thing and one thing only, and they've just had a 6-figure launch once for themselves, and now they're teaching other people how to have 6-figure launches, just like they had a 6-figure launch. Ooh, that's not real expertise.
I love this permission almost that you're granting us. I'm like, thank you, Michelle, thank you for the permission. Thank you for granting me permission to look at what's happening from a marketing perspective, because there are so many different mechanisms at the moment. There's, different types of social media structures. Should I be on, what's the latest one? TikTok. Should I be on TikTok or not be on TikTok? And how many times do I need to post? Oh my God, I need to get into the Facebook groups or do the Facebook lives. And exactly what does that process look like? So thank you for the permission of being able to look at it and go, yes, it works, but I'm not going to work it. Or yes, it works, but even when I work it, I can't get those results. Like it doesn't work for me. To be able to sort of say, it's not this way is the only way, it's this way. And there are other options I can explore so I can land on something that's different. So why do you call it a rebellion apart from the fact that you flipped the whole thing on its head and just decided, everybody's saying this, I'm gonna go say the opposite?
Well, I feel like my business actually started from me like ranting and rebelling against what I saw. So like when I first started this, like I didn't really start my business as a business. I started it as a blog. So when I left academia, I actually went into market research, and I was doing market research for like Microsoft and like General Mills and those kinds of brands. And one of my friends said to me, he's like, Michelle, you know so many things about communication and you're not doing anything with it. And he's like, you should just put that stuff out there. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start a blog. And I'm a former academic, which means I write like Ambien. Like it's boring and dry. And yeah, my first blogs were terrible.
But they were very factual.
Oh yes, they were very informative. Very, very informative. But there was this moment when I found my voice as a writer, and I was at this event and there was a speaker. And she got up in front of the room and she asked everyone to stand up. And so we were good audience members and we stood up as you know, audience members do. And she asked us to clap, and we were good audience members and we clapped. And then she said, you have given me a standing ovation and now I must earn it. And literally the energy in the room just plummeted. The woman next to me took her like order form that the speaker put on our chairs and started ripping it
she
up.
did not.
Yes, she did. Like ripping it up, like very visibly. And I've never heard paper like tear so loud. And I like outlined this super ranty blog post about how not to be a motivational speaker. Like, because this woman just, I could not believe the things she was pulling in this room. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to waste my time like listening to her because it was just a terrible experience. So I wrote this super ranty blog post about it. And then it was the kind of thing that I was just afraid to put out into the world because it was so just like, it was in my true voice. It was ranty. I mean, it was also like saying like how she could do things differently to like develop a relationship with us, to make us feel good in the moment.
That's
feel
the academic, right?
Yeah. Like, you know, I wanted to be helpful too, like rant and be helpful. And so, but I pushed, you know, like I put it out in the world, people shared it, like it got a lot of traction. And then I got an email in my inbox with the title of the blog post. And I was like, oh gosh, here it comes.
Oh God. Yeah.
Like, oh. And it was from this guy who was like, oh my God, I love this blog post. He's like, this is awesome. I'm looking for a new speaking coach. Like, can we talk? How much do you charge? And I'm like, I didn't have a business. I didn't have anything.
I don't do speaking coaching. I was just ranting.
I know. I was like, sure, we can talk, because I knew I could do it. And he was giving a keynote speech for Barbara Bush's Points of Light Foundation in front of the former First Lady, in front of like all these famous people. And that was my first gig. Like that's how my business got started, from like ranting and rebelling against what I was seeing in the world. So that's why I really believe that rebellion has always been a part of my brand, like from the very beginning.
Oh my, it's so much in that, because as you're saying that, I think we've all got those things that get under our skin, or those unpopular opinions. I mean, I got a ton of unpopular opinions. You just think, do I want to put that out into the world? And the truth is, there's, you know, sometimes it's an observation where you're just looking at something and you're like, really, is this what's going on here? Like, why? But often that sort of stuff is also the sort of thing, especially women, we filter out, right? We just think, I don't know how raw I want to put that. Maybe I want to polish it up a little bit. I'm just going to share the top level points. I'm not going to go too deep into why why my feelings are the way they are. And some of it sometimes comes from exactly what you said, like, what the frick are people going to say? Like when this goes out,
yes,
it's that revealing of, that was my real, raw, honest, authentic position on something. And some people are going to love it, but the same way some people in that room may have loved this woman doing this standing ovation thing and thought, oh my God, what an amazing idea. But there were also people where it polarizes. And sometimes that honest truth is polarizing. How do you recommend that people, or what do we do about getting okay with that polarizing place? Because I've seen it in marketing. I've observed a few people who they've got on this bandwagon of wanting to polarize. And what they've done is they've basically put out stuff that's always controversial. And that has never landed well with me, because I just think, geez, you never talk about anything except something you think is going to piss people off. I'm like, I ain't got time for that. Like, you're just deliberately looking for something that's going to shake things up and piss people off. And you're inviting the trolls to come after you. For me personally, that's not something I want to do. It's not something that sits well with me. So what's that sort of balance between authentically communicating and just being contrary?
Yes. So I think that's the other side of the coin, right? It's about also talking about the change you want to create in the world, because just complaining about like, oh, this is wrong and this is bad and this sucks and I don't like bro marketers, like that's great and all, like, yeah, point out what's wrong in the world. But if you don't talk about like how you want to fix it, what you want to do about it, what you want to see differently, how you're going to act differently, then it is just complaining and stoking controversy. So for me, it is always that other piece. It's like, yeah, tell me what you're taking a stand against, and then tell me what you're going to do about it. Because like in the work I do with clients now, that, like, I do want to know what makes you mad and what pisses you off, but I need to know the other side of it, like the change you want to create, because that's where the messaging actually comes from. Because, you know, like, if you don't articulate that, you're just kind of complaining and there's nowhere to go. It's like, yeah, that sucks. And what am I supposed to do? What is the alternative to the suckage?
So it's not just kind of putting out the 10 reasons why something suck and the reasons why this isn't working very well, and that kind of pull on the fear and the shock factor and pointing the finger. It's that kind of nice balance. Why do you think the anger is so important?
Well, because I think that is because other people see it too, and they want to know that they're not alone. Because if you're rolling your eyes at it, there's somebody else out there who's like, oh my gosh, really?
Finally.
Like, oh, I wish somebody would say something about that. I wish there was an alternative to that. Because I felt like when I was seeing all of that marketing when I was first starting out, I was like, really? Is this the only way to do marketing for your business? Really? There's no, like, I know there's, like, I learned an alternative, but is like real? Oh, okay. And so, like, if you can say, yeah, I don't like this. This is why I don't like this. And here's a better way. Somebody else is going to be like, yes, I don't like this either. And thank you for saying it. So it's kind of establishing that common ground, and it gets people's attention, right? And I think it has that effect of it, you know, sorts out the people who aren't the right people for you, because frankly, you don't want the right people, you know, you don't want the wrong people coming at you.
Were you always a rebel? Like, as a kid, were you always that person who just was like, don't like it, or not like don't like it in terms of complaining, but that person who was always going, there must be something different? I know everybody else is doing it this way, but no, I'm going to go do it a different way. Were you always that person?
You know, it was kind of hard for me to be a rebel growing up because my mom was pretty mentally ill growing up. So I was one of those people who was always the caretaker in my household. Mm-hmm. So I was always, you know, in high school, like, it was pretty obvious, like, you know, the kid that had the mom at home that was kind of crazy, and you always knew that kid. Like, I was that kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't so much that I was always doing things differently. You just knew I had a whole different reality going on at home. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't so much that I was the rule breaker. It was always that I was managing a different reality. So I always was seeing things differently because my worldview was just different. Like, I had to manage a mom who's couldn't trust her worldview and how she was thinking. So she had to trust my worldview. So I had to grow up much faster than most of my peers.
I want to pick up on that idea of worldview, because sometimes when people think of rebel and rebellion, it's this thing of being like, starting the next freaking revolution, right? Da 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 da, you know, coming in.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the place where everybody comes from, or where people, you know, everybody, or something everybody can relate to, in terms of, you know, this woman is talking about, or Michelle's talking about, being a rebel, but I don't relate to being that person who wants to shake things up and make things that different. So I love this idea of having your own unique, it's almost like an idea of honoring your own unique worldview and being okay with your worldview being different. And that's the rebellion.
Yeah, it's so funny. So once I was on a consult call, and this woman said to me, and she worked with children who have attention deficit disorder. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, Michelle, you don't understand. I'm a creator. I don't want to destroy. I don't want to rebel. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about the current educational system. Do you think that that system can exist as it is with the system that you want to create in it for these kids with attention deficit disorder? And she's like, oh no, absolutely not. The system really needs to change, and it will better education for all of the kids. I was like, oh, so that system needs to be destroyed then? And she's like, oh.
Okay, when you put it like that.
Yeah, she's like, when you put it like that, it was like, because one system, like two competing systems can't exist at the same time. It's kind of like in the personal development world, they talk about you kind of have to destroy the person that you are now to become the person you want to be. It's that same concept. So we are always in some ways staging these tiny little rebellions. And so whether it's in personal development or maybe it's just changing our industry, because like for me, it's like I hate all of that manipulative marketing. And so it's so refreshing to see us getting away from that, because I feel like I'm staging that tiny little rebellion to make marketing more human and make communication matter in that way. So it can be a tiny rebellion, or it can be a massive rebellion, like you're rebelling against capitalism or whatever, or racism or whatever.
Yeah.
So, it's a matter of scale, but yeah, like our worldview plays a part of that for sure.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And do you know what? We spent so long kind of going into the depths of rebellion. But the truth is it's so core to what you do. And I just wanted a better understanding of like, what do we mean by that rebellion? Because it's a word that some people naturally really relate to and others go, I'm not a rebel. I'm like more like a role player. That's not really who I am. So to have this unique and slightly different perspective on what it means to rebel and shake something up without it necessarily, for those of us who may not be able to relate to these big transformational, changing the political system and, all of these big underlying things, but being able to say, in my world, for my clients, I want to be an active participant in this sort of change in the world, and this is my contribution to it. I am all over that. And I love the work that you're doing to bring a more human side to communication, because I know there's a lot of women who I hear all the time, the sales techniques and the marketing techniques and those sorts of things, they just don't sit well, and being told to do them or going through those motions, it can make it really difficult to continue that deep connection with why you started business in the first place. So thank you for staging your own rebellion, girl.
Yes. And I'm so glad we had this conversation, because it always helps me to be like, yeah, rebellion, it can be that, it can be small and it can be tiny. And I feel like, especially if you're doing any kind of transformational work, you are staging these tiny little rebellions with your clients because you're helping them change and transform.
And the bigger the rebellion, the bigger the impact, which kind of brings me on to the next question. I'm like, rebel bigger. So given that you're out there creating all these rebels,
yes,
it's like the pirates of the Caribbean. Like you're like leading the ship. Like, given you're out there creating all these rebels, what, and your kind of unique perspective, what is it you think makes a woman powerful?
Oh, I think a woman is powerful when she allows herself to take up space.
Oh, girl.
Which is hard for women to do. And I mean physical space, like speaking, right? When you think about speaking, like on the stage, like taking up the space, like full gestures.
Using the whole stage, not just standing in one little corner.
Yes, use the whole stage, like take up all the space, but also during meetings when she speaks up, asks questions, lets her voice be heard, puts her work out in the world. Like, to me, that's what makes a woman powerful. And it is so freaking hard to do, but that's what I love seeing.
Oh, do you know what? If I think about it, I don't know any powerful woman who hasn't taken up some form of space in the world. Like I can honestly say, please, if you know of somebody, like message me, say, Lovelda, this person's really powerful and they are taking up zero space. Like I don't know of one powerful woman who hasn't taken that on as a thing that they've conquered, that they're okay with being seen and present and owning their voice and saying what it is that they want. That's a beautiful, beautiful way of summarizing it. Yeah. On to my mean question. The mean question, which is the premise of this show that I ask everybody, which is, if you were to take everything you've done in your life everything you've done in your business, look at, filter down, sit down and filter what's your successes, and boil the cause of those successes down to, yeah, we're coming to it, down to 3 things, 3 techniques, tools, or ways of being that have been pivotal in you being able to have the level of impact that you're having in the world. What would they be?
Okay, so number 1, we've really dived into number 1, which is rebellion is good for the soul. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that one. I know, funny that one, yeah, but I really do believe that rebellion is good for the soul, like really looking inward and figuring out, what am I rebelling against? What change do I want to create? I think that's like looking at those questions, journaling on those questions, it opens up a whole lot. Number 2 is, I just recently discovered this, and it is that I really do believe that every business owner, and honestly, almost every person I encounter is a thought leader. And this is kind of a funny story because I got a 1-star review for my book, The 3-Word Rebellion, and the review
Shame on them.
I know, but the review really taught me about a core bias that I have, which is because the review was basically like, this book wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all, which I have no idea what he thought it was going to be. But it basically accused me of living in the Twitterverse where I believe everybody is a thought leader. And I was like, wait, I actually do believe that everyone is a thought leader, because in, my upbringing where my mom couldn't trust her own brain and had to trust mine, it was always like, well, Michelle, what do you think? Being an academic, people wanted to know what I thought about other people's research, what other people's theories. Being a debater in college, what do I think about this policy? When I was standing in front of the classroom, I wanted to know what my students thought. Yes, so I approach everyone like, you're a thought leader, like your thoughts have value, and that you have something in your head that is valuable and that could change the world, or at least change one person. So yes, everyone is a thought leader.
And how do we unlock that thought leadership within us? Because I think when people think, oh, thought leader, this is somebody who's out there, who people are seeking them out for their thoughts and insights and opinions. Whereas it feels like your definition of thought leadership is slightly different. It's a bit more personal.
Yes. And it's been interesting because I've started researching like the definitions of thought leaders, and I've realized how jacked up the definition is. So here I think I'm rebelling against this too, because it is all about like, oh, people seek you out for your expertise. And it's like, but you had to develop that expertise. And it's not about how unique your expertise is. It's like a high school clique or popularity contest being a thought leader. It's like, oh, you have a big following and people seek you out. And it's like, what about the originality of the thought or the quality of the thought? It shouldn't be a popularity contest. So for me, seeing you as a thought leader means that I believe that you have a thought that is of amazing quality, that's rolling up around in your head, that you need to believe in and advocate for and put out into the world.
That right there. I need that meme. That's what I need. I need a meme that just says that, what she just said right there, that. Like, I want to get past that word. But what you just said, this idea that you have something that is of value that you need to believe in. I'm like, oh, yes. That thing right there. I'm gonna rewind it and put that on like replay. Like we need one of those like boomerangs just for that.
Yeah, because that's what I believe thought leadership is, because thought is just a cognition and leadership is influence and advocacy. So you're advocating for that thought. So that, to me, that's what it is. Like, that's all it is that you are advocating for your thought and you're putting it out in the world because you believe in it.
So you need to put some belief behind your thoughts. If you're a thought leader and you can put belief behind that thought, that something that you think is transformational, at least for one other human being on the world, at least one, put some belief behind it. put some of you behind it, like really go out there and make it happen. So we're on 2. So rebellion, thought leadership, and then what's the third one?
The don't ask how, ask what if. So once again, being a researcher, I think we get so caught up in the like, oh, well, how am I going to do this thing? And it keeps us from like dreaming about the change we want to create in the world, or even the business we want to create. So we could think, oh, like even something simple like, I want to create $1 million business. We're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how. And it's like, wrong question. What if I could? What if I could create $1 million business? What would that look like? What if is such a better question, because it allows more experimentation and less attachment to outcome, which is something I had to really learn to let go of, because I would get so attached to things like working out that I would let perfectly good ideas go just because they didn't work out the way I thought they would, because I was like, ugh. So what if has been just such a godsend to my life and my business, just because it's just a much better way to frame things in your life, instead of thinking about like, oh, how am I going to do this big audacious thing, like change the world or change one person. You just think like, oh, well, yeah, what if I could change that one school so ADHD students could learn better? What if I could do that? And then what if I could change a district? Yeah.
You know what's so amazing about that? Like when you ask how to, it's like even the physical reaction for me. One is like how to, and I'm like, ugh, it's like heavy. And what if I'm like, ooh, possibility. You know, my brain is like open to allowing things to come to me that could support it, because I'm not attached to what direction it's going in. I'm kind of like, what if? Like it's just a completely different energy. One opens me up and the other one has me go, oh, here we go. This is going to be work. And if any of y'all know me, which you're getting to know me, Lovelda don't do things that feel like work. It's just not something I'm up for at all. Mamma mia, Michelle, you have come and brought it today. And there'll be people who are listening to this episode and from the beginning of this show have just been thinking, oh my gosh, thank you for the permission to just do things different. And they want to explore that journey a little bit more. What is the best way of connecting with you?
Yes. So if you want to connect with me, the best way to do that is on Instagram. That's where I spend all my time on social media these days. I'm at Dr. Michelle Mazur on Instagram. Feel free to follow me, to DM me and tell me one of your takeaways from this interview. I love to hear about those things. So Instagram is my jam. And then if you want a taste of some of the questions we were talking about,
you got gifts?
I got gifts for you all.
Oh, do tell. Pray tell.
Yeah. So if you're interested in exploring like what you're rebelling against, the change you want to create, I have this framework called the 3-Word Rebellion, which yes, is a book. You can get it on Amazon, but it's also a free gift that you can start journaling on and exploring. And you can get that at the3wordrebellion.com. It's the number 3, or you can spell it out 3, doesn't matter. So 3-Word
Or you can click on the link in the show notes.
Yeah,
it's all
click on the
in
link
there.
In the show notes. Yep, either way.
Pop yourself right over there and get all of that stuff in. So, Rebel Michelle.
Yes.
What is the one thing you would love to leave us with today?
Oh, wow. So this has been such a great, expansive conversation that I'm like, what do I want to leave you with? Because we've talked about tiny little rebellions. So if I had to sum it up, I would say, take up space and believe in the power of your thoughts to change lives. Because I know that there is something in your head right now that could help someone else. If you believe in it, if you share it, if you get it out of your head and put it on paper and tell just one other person.
Have the power of your convictions, darlings. You are here to have a really big impact on the world. Take that stretch. Choose today to take up that much more space than you took up yesterday, right? Just choose today to ask those questions, to use your voice in a bigger way than you did yesterday. Day by day, little rebellion by little rebellion, that's how you're going to take on the world. You heard it from Michelle first. I'm just telling you. I'm just repeating what she said. Michelle, you have been an absolute blast. Loads to learn. Check out the show notes for any of the links shared today. Anything that we've discussed, you'll be able to find those in the show notes. If you haven't already hit subscribe, you got about 3 seconds to get that done. Please leave us a review. I'd love to hear what you think. Send through your messages, send through your comments. If you're on YouTube, put your comments down there. Let's hear what you're up to, peeps. You have been listening to The Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast. Until the next episode, my darling. Ciao.